We're going to take a look at exercise 616 for the hinge bracket. And this is another two-view sketch. We're given the front and the bottom views. When I'm looking at this, notice that we have all the little V marks. Those are surface grind marks. So that is something that we'll have to address at least in process. Since it's not given a call out for a surface finish and it's not really a true grind mark, we need a little bit more information, but we'll treat it as if it was a grind or a finish. So looking at this this shape, we're going to concentrate on the front view, and this lends itself to be the contour and region. And so if I do the majority of this sketch, then I'll be able to make the extrusions and the cuts coming out of it. So I'm going to fly this out of the way, and this is an inch part. So file new, part inch. And in the front plane, as far as a starting point, kind of the lower left corner works okay. We're going to draw a couple of lines, and I think I've got my mouse issue corrected, so I shouldn't see any weird jumps. So an over and an up, and that's, well, I didn't get that one clicked. That's enough to get a few dimensions on it. So 2.2. And then a height of 0.62. Distance of 1 inch. Alright, and then let's see, before we get into the more complicated stuff, we'll come up and over, do a few more pieces. Still kind of watching for those inference lines. To 1/2 inch. And then the overall is 3.3, so I'll go object to object. Alright, we have an angle of 60 degrees, so back into the line command. And this is going to go into the to the arc, but I don't know that I want to pick that up just yet. So 60 degrees would be from the line to the line, and then the non-parallel lines get 60 degrees, and then just watch if you select that endpoint, what it's when it comes up with the four-headed arrow, that you can go ahead and pick on one of the arrows or just clear it out and try again. Alright, so for this this arc, since the arc kind of carries over, does a couple of things, and then has a larger arc for this undercut, I'm going to go ahead and make that a circle. And because this is intended to be contours and regions, let's see, we had a radius of 0.62. So in that case, I'm just going to go ahead and leave whatever is given. We'll switch the leaders over from diametral to radial. And then I get the R value, 0.62. And just double check that number. It has a location. They snuck one in. So we're going to try this. The dimension 2.2 is actually to the center of that circle. So highlighting the dimension, grabbing a hold of the grip, and bringing it to the circle allows me to change its location, or allows me to update the dimension. Okay, so, and then from the center of the circle over was 0.12. Okay, so our vertical distance will be 1 inch. So going to the perimeter of the circle, positions, And then we'll go back into the select, pick the line, kind of an up and over. That may, no, that's going to get coincident and horizontal. So even though I'm going to go ahead with a horizontal there, and that distance is given at 0.26. All right, and I'm not concerned with the radius, but there is going to be a little bit of vertical line coming off of tangent, so that'll make it a little bit strange here. So dragging along the perimeter of the circle, I'm just going to bring that line down. And it's just a fingernail of a sliver. And I'm not sure if I want to trim out that little section or not. Depends on how difficult it is to pick as part of the contour and region. All right, so we have a vertical line, and this dimension can be found on the base, carries up to the top, 1.26. All right, and then to bring the angle in, we're going to make it coincident, but then also it needs to be tangent. So select, control, select the circle and the line, and tangent, and we'll find the solution where that point contacts. All right, so I'm going to say the overlap there. Not quite sure if that's worth the trim, so I'm going to go ahead with the radius of 0.8 would be 1.6. And then after the fact, since the math was easy enough to do, we'll switch it to radial, make sure it's 0.8. The through dimension of 0.497 to 500. Our maximum material condition puts it at 497. And this outer circle really could go to B for construction. And I think I'm going to go ahead and trim this little segment out here, so we'll see what that does to the sketch. So trim to closest, and then it didn't cause anything to go under define, so that's good. And we have enough here to start building our shapes. So if we just wanted to build this in kind of a stacked mode, then my first dimension for the kind of the circle minus the little notch would be to the 0.12. And then the entire face to 0.26. All right, including this lower area. And then build out the rest of it so that it can be chamfered and the rest of the cuts included. All right, so we're going to try this, see if I can keep track of all my depths. Features, extrude boss. And we're going to take the first, and I'm not going to worry about the center. We're just going to build it out. Also, I could build the 1/8 of an inch out. Yeah, it just kind of depends on the datum. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and stack everything consistently here. So that's to the 0.1. Sorry, the 0.12. All right, and then we're going to share that sketch. So since I already have geometry, we expand out, we select the sketch, and I can go right into Extrude Boss Base. And now I'm picking up the region, and we're going to reverse. And since I don't have any depth to pick the vertices on this one, let's see what else is going to pick up here from the 0.12 to the 0.26. All right, so maybe not that one just yet. All right, so instead of the circle, we're going to need to have the inside region. And the inside region, I'm going to go ahead and include the interior circle. And why did that one not? All right, I'm just going to go ahead and clear selections, make sure that I have good picks. All right, so that one's going to be a distance of 0.12. So the problem of working with the offsets is that I'm changing the sketch from this face to the surface. I could have also picked from surface, face, or plane and picked the back. In fact, that's probably a better choice. I can set that number, but then if something happened to that distance and I updated it, then this wouldn't update with it also. So surface and plane. So it picks up the sketch, carries it back, starts from that distance, and then since the total is 0.26, then we would need to go 0.14. All right, and then the rest of our geometry, sketch, extrude boss base. We'll see if this can go all the way around because, let's see, we have the notch on the front, and then there's also this. Okay, so just verifying the geometry. So pretty much I'm not concerned about this notch. I'm looking at this notch and the setback for that 0.26. Okay, so selected contour, we'll see if it goes all the way around. Well, it sees that as a thin feature, so that's not going to be good. Thin feature is going to have a wall thickness, and it's going to try and go like a sheet metal part, which is not what I want. So make sure to uncheck the thin feature. We're going to clear that out and reverse the direction. And we'll just go ahead and select all of the regions. And then where before I did the math, we're going to go surface, face, or plane and pick that, rotate over, pick that back face. And this time, instead of giving it a blind condition that required the math, I'm going to give it an offset from surface. All right, so the math is an overall of 2.76. So picking this front face and reversing the direction, let's go with the 2.76. Otherwise, I have to perform that math. All right, and that looks pretty good, so we'll go with it. The check then is that I have a step to 0.12. I have a step to 0.26, and then the overall from the face to the opposite face, 2.76. So as long as those numbers play out, it doesn't really matter how I get there. It's just the future what-if scenario of I change the depth. I have something else come into play here that was unanticipated, and we have to do something with it. All right, so the through hole, since we've now stacked all those up, rather than dealing with the through hole all the way past, I'm going to go ahead with a cut extrude. We can pick the circle, tell it to go through all, and it becomes our through bore. All right, so one more cut that we can make on this front sketch before we have to start with the notches and the chamfers. Let's go ahead and highlight sketch one more time, extrude cut. We have a distance offset of 1 inch. And then I need to make sure it's going the right way. Oh, I guess it would help to actually select something. Oh, and it's not going to let me select the construction line. And I didn't really want that construction line to be participating anyway, so then we'll just have to kick that one out. So closing it, I'm going to open up a sketch, and then by picking the construction line, oh, I'm in the sketch. It's not letting me pick this construction line. Alright, normally I would just convert that, but we'll find the center, bring out a circle. How about a Control 1 to get into the front view? Maybe it has to be shown. Alright, so well, there again, I could put the dimension on it, but I have it driven in that first sketch. I would like to tie it back to. So let's just double check. If I show it, and then right click, edit the sketch. There it goes. Maybe it was grabbing it earlier and I didn't see the lines. That can be co-radial. And co-radial is one of those cases where it shows the same center and the same radius. Since I drew it from the center, it already kind of did, but because of the way that co-radial works is inside of a sketch, you would probably only use it between arcs, but one sketch to another sketch, then it's going to share the same properties of that construction circle. Features, extrude cut. Now we can try the offset of 1 inch. We'll make sure it's going the right way, and it's not. Alright, and then we have a limit distance of 1 inch to 998. So blind end condition, maximum material condition gives me 998. And then we build it as the cutout. Alright. And then the unanticipated is that, oh, this needs to go over and take care of all of that. So let's go ahead and accept it, see what the result is, that we have that little bar. But when I look at the bottom view, the circle wasn't enough to fully intersect, so I have to add some additional geometry. Alright, so expanding out for Cut Extrude 2, editing the sketch. Then, I think in this case, well, maybe we'll just, I was going to say convert. Control select the 3 lines, 3 edges, convert the entities. The extra lines, I don't think they hurt anything here. I just don't think it's a best practice to leave them. And since convert is shown as fully defined, but you can still drag them out to the circle and make them coincident. All right, and then I can accept. And the rebuild error is because I had a standard sketch. I wasn't intending to use contours and regions, but I ended up with them. I'm just going to exit the sketch and rebuild anyway. And it's going to flash me the warning, has open and close contours. When I go back and edit the feature, it now defaults to where I can pick the circle, I can pick the region, and it removes that, that extra material. Okay, and you know, for that matter, a rectangle, you know, some other geometry didn't have to follow that contour exactly. It just had to be a tool to remove the extra material. All right, so I think that's pretty good there. So that face, nope, I think that face, oh, I was going to try and cut that out, but looking back at it, that was what I was searching for when I first did that. Did I want that? Yes, I need to go back and add that in. All right, so the check on an afterthought is the very first piece. We're going to edit that feature. We have the contour and region, make sure it's selected. I'm going to go ahead and include it. So that comes out 1/8 of an inch. And then, wow, rebuild errors. All right, so what would be boss extrude? Because, let's see, that one built out the first segment. Now let's go see what the contours were that were selected. oh, I got into the sketch. I needed to be into the feature. All right, so the 140 additional distance, region, region, region. So let's include that region. And then the planar surface, oh, since that geometry changed, add that extra little bit. It wants to redefine or have you make a new selection. All right, so pretty much the same thing. Nope, the face, the offset from surface. So same thing is that this front face changed. So we're going to pick the distance, make sure the direction is correct. Look at the preview, that looks good. All right, and then the last one, the cut extrude. It picked up either a change in the sketch, and actually in the sketch I'm not seeing it. So here would be a place where we display delete relations, and this is still showing as fully defined. It gives me the it's still showing as an error, but let's go ahead and edit the feature. And an offset distance of 1 inch. Selecting the contour, selecting the face. Alright, so we're going to have to give that one a right click and find out what's wrong. Could not find the face or the plane. So that being the case, this is one of those not very well documented or doesn't come up very often, that the reason the sketches could not find that face or plane, same reason that we had to reselect, we're going to have to go to edit sketch plane. All right, so at the very top is edit the sketch, the next one too, the second one in, edit sketch plane. Now we're going to see the missing face. I'm going to come back and select that face, and because I just added that piece of geometry, it's going to create that issue. Now it can find a solution, it makes the adjustment, and finishes out the geometry. Alright, so I want to just kind of check the steps. And we'll fly in. Okay, and then angle, angle, and no angle on the leading front and left. Alright, so I think I've got the majority of the geometry. Going to a Control 6, looking at it from the bottom. Except for the hidden lines visible. Oh, that was the other way to get to the bottom. Now we'll go to hidden lines visible. Now I can kind of see those geometries. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to stay in the shaded though. So back to shaded. We're through with the sketch, so I'll go back and hide it. All right, and then whole wizard, your choice. Select the face, pick it from the command manager, or hit the S key on the keyboard. Go into the whole wizard, and this is going to be pretty close to a 5/16 counterbore. So we make sure that the counterbore is selected. We're in ANSI inch. I think we're going to do better with a socketed cap screw, or at least typically we're going to find their socketed cap screws. This is going to be for a 5/16. We want to show custom sizing. So 332. Let's see what happens if we go to a loose designation. So 11/32, 3437. 0.53 on the diameter, 0.35 deep. All right, so then since this is custom, we're pretty close for that 5/16. So we're going to override, but just remember that you are putting in these overridden numbers, that making this adjustment comes with the making sure, for whatever reason it's not standard. And then based on the type, there may be a better selection on the type. But, other than, 5/16 Phillips head, not really. A hex is going to require quite a bit larger relief to get a socket or to get, a driver into that geometry. No, we don't need a near side countersink. And then for the positions, we're looking at the top view, and we can place the first, go ahead and place the second. And then I right clicked, and occasionally that happens where it's close enough together. This is a good time to take a look at what happens with the whole wizard items. We're definitely not in position. I have the minus sign out front, which tells me that the sketch is underdefined. In most cases, we're going to want to edit the feature and go back to positions to make that adjustment. Occasionally, you'll be able to edit the sketch. And since I'm just manipulating the points, we'll go vertical. It is 1/2 inch off of the edge. And then distance 0.62 from, all right, so since we're looking at this from the bottom view, we'll go over to Control 6. And then 0.62. And make sure that I can pick those points, 1.25. All right, so that gives me fully defined sketch. And the features. So let's go ahead with, probably will be better to look at it this way just so I don't lose my frame of reference. We have a chamfer of 3/8, 3/8, and 3/8. So I'll make sure I'm in my chamfer, 0.38, and accept. So the chamfers and the fillets go in last as a general rule. There are times where you may need one of the geometries to be in earlier, but for the most part we're going to try to put those last so a fillet's not driving geometry or interfering. Radius of 0.2 in the corner, and then a radius of 0.12. So since those are not the same, fly that back out. It's not really going to matter. Oh, and I grabbed an extra edge, got a little click happy there. 0.2. And oh, my previews aren't on. So no preview, I'm not going to see anything. We go to a full preview. Well, it should catch up. How about a partial preview? Show me one of them. All right, so that's an interesting consequence of the fillet, is that when we have tangent propagation on, that since there's just a little sliver, it would try to leave that sliver, and it depends on our machining process whether that would actually be there. So if I turn off tangent propagation, and we have the two edges, well, it's going to be intent on leaving that there. And no, I don't want to mess with those. Profile. And go ahead with the feature expert, since that little sliver is probably the one that has a problem. I'm going to say that it's probably, feature expert's probably going to put a fillet and leave that. So two separate features to, and go ahead and keep the partial results in this case. Oh, that is interesting. Okay, I did not expect it to go. And then where did where did that fillet come from? Oh. And not sure why it put it up there. There we go. Yeah, okay, so I'm still a little not quite sure what it did there. All right, so depending on the manufacturing process to remove that material, then we could potentially end up with a little bit of sharp in there that is not really shown or picked up in the drawing. All right, so 0.12. And that'll give me the blend. Back to the geometry. Okay, so without more information on the surface finish callouts, if it is just you know, we want a nice finish, or if it is actually going to be something that needs to be ground, you know, without some additional tolerancing, or you know, maybe even some GD&T to tell us what the intent is, we're just going to call those marks as a standard 16 to 32 finish, that the rest of the part can be rough machined. All right, so we're going to save to assignment 4 and 615. Oh, 616 hinge bracket. And put my initials on it and save. All right, so just a little bit off screen there. All right, so optionally, creating a drawing for this piece, since we're given the front and the bottom, and want to have those other views, then we're going to go into New, and we'll stay with the drawing. When we create the template, we'll probably do that next as an in-between before we get into the revolves. We'll create a simple template, and then we can use that. In the meantime, go ahead with the ANSI landscape, or put in the 11" by 8.5", and we'll just go with a blank piece. All right, and again, this is optional. If you're interested in the drafting side and making the detail drawings, then you know, go ahead and carry these through. The more seat time that you get with the drawings, the easier it gets, the more problems that you encounter and can solve, the better off you'll be. So we're going to put in the 3 views. And we have the center view and the isometric view. Those are a little on the small side. Let's see what it gets. 1/2. I doubt it's going to be able to take a 1-to-1, but we'll go ahead and look. Really close on the 1-to-1. So I would like to have the 1-to-1 on the A side, or A size sheet, but the advantage of having a smaller title block would be that I would have more room to manipulate these. So let's go ahead and leave it. I'm going to shrink the isometric view from the sheet scale to a custom scale, and then we'll place it at 1/2 since it's just for reference. And then some dimensions. All right, so we're in the top view now. I haven't set up any layers. We'll do that when we make the template. And so we'll just put a few basic dimensions on this to get it started, get a feel for the layout and the position. All right, and then keep in mind, move that up just a little bit, manipulate these around. And then our overalls, depths, So the 2.76. This also gives us an opportunity to double check the dimensions, since there were those, well, kind of strange stack-ups and some of the things that went on in the build. It gives us an opportunity to verify that geometry, that we ended up with the correct, and it gives us a next opportunity for error checking. All right, so since this is in 2 decimal places, and I have that 1, I didn't worry about marking it for drawing. Let's go to 3 decimal places, and this will be a limit dimension. So a limit with a plus 0.002. All right, and then same thing with the through hole. Oh, I already applied that. All right, so if I need to, we'll go to a limit dimension plus 0.003. All right, so I'm just doing that math. 500 minus 497 gives me 3 thousandths, and putting plus or minus 3 thousandths gives it that separation for the limit. All right, so slightly undersized. When you're using the hole wizard, then we would want to go with the hole callout, and it's going to apply dimensions to the geometry. Let's see if we can move the front view over a little bit, make some room for that. All right, so takeaway here is don't make the drawing so tight to the sheet that you have to cram everything in. It needs to be visually make sense as to what we're doing. And then the other circle we will need for that radius, so having some hidden views would help. And since that didn't carry over, use parent style and parent style. All right, so a little extra information maybe makes it a little busier than what I would like, but it gives a little more detail. All right, so once we kind of realize that, yeah, we really have crammed a lot, let's go back to the 1.1 to 2, half scale. Place our dimensions again. But for the most part, we should be in pretty good shape as far as we haven't lost any dimensions, nothing really changed. What we wouldn't want to do is rotate the front view after it's been established, because then the dimensions would be lost for the most part. So what else can we put on here? Typically would not dimension to the hidden line, but it is available, so we'll put in the 0.8. We have the 60 degree off of the nose. All right, so we'll kind of fit that in. Once it's fit in, then we can make it a little better looking in positioning it. And then our hole locations. Remember, if you go to the center lines, you want to pick the horizontal or the vertical depending on the orientation. So from the back edge to the center line, that would be a horizontal, and then those two would be your verticals. All right, and then notice that even though I called out for a 5/16 and the defaults were a little different, it still picked up my custom sizes for the counterbores. All right, so you can put a few more dimensions on, save it. The takeaway, notice it's saving the same name as the part file in this case. We're just doing single parts. We're not going to do all of these, just enough to kind of build in, and then later on we'll focus on the drawings as well. The takeaway is that when you make a change, going back to this model, when I made that change, adding this geometry, because there were other objects that were built on top of it or related to it, it makes downstream changes, or in this case upstream changes, that we have to recover from. None of those errors is particularly catastrophic, but taken as a whole, they're kind of a nuisance, and you have to go through and identify and troubleshoot each one individually. So don't panic when you make a change and see all of the red and the yellows. Just kind of go through it systematically, and remember that you can go into a sketch and change its sketch plane, especially if that initial face was modified or changed after the fact.